All right, welcome to the latest installment of the Run to Daylight podcast, Bestball Study Hall. I'm your host, Todd Burrows, and I am excited to do the Run to Daylight podcast. And I am also excited to welcome in my new sponsor. Dun 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 dun. Underdog. And of course, when I was a kid, what was one of the most popular shows on television? Well, it was Underdog. And the theme was the cry goes up from far and near for Underdog. So that's what I did. All right, so we're going to be talking about the Best Ball Mania 3 draft, which is going to be $10 million. Last year was 3.5. This year it's $10 million. Two up top, 1 million if you just 1 million for second, 1 million if you come in first in the regular season, and every one of the final 470 teams are going to make at least $1,000, with most of them making at least $1,500. So this tournament is off the hook. It is more of a top-heavy tournament still than some others, but it is so much fun and it's so much cheaper that you really can do a lot of exposure. And I'm very excited about it. So we're going to look a little bit deeper into the rules, and we're also going to I got to check to make sure my volume's on, because I did this whole pod and didn't realize I didn't have my volume on the first time. Doing this one live, so um, we definitely are going to have everything that we need. So if you want to join me in one of the many drafts I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be announcing them. If you've never joined Underdog, use the code DAYLIGHT and they will match up to $100 of your first entry. And then you get to play and come try and take down this $2 million top prize. Very, very excited about this tournament and the partnership with Underdog. Um, and so it is now time for me to share my screen. And I am going to share the Underdog rules. And I'm going to get rid of my beautiful face. All right. So, hope all of you can see that. If any of you have questions as we go along, let me know. All right. General contest information. So, $25 entry. Most of this is standard, but the key stuff I want to go through is two of the 12 teams advance, just like last year. Round two, 1 out of 10. So last year it was 2 out of 12. This year it's 1 out of 10. I kind of like that. And then the final round is 470 entries. So if you win your league, you only need 2 weeks of, I don't even want to call it luck, 1 in 10 and 1 in 16 to advance to the final 470. And that last week is going to be insane with so many people in the group. So what we're going to do as we go along, I mentioned it's a little more top heavy, more like a DFS contest that you would find on DraftKings or on FanDuel in the past. And then I think that we need to talk as we go along about the different ways that we are going to try and diversify our portfolios, make each team unique so that we can both get to the playoffs, because you want to at least get some of your money back. And so you don't want to just have these teams that are wildly out there and say, I get that a lot on Twitter. Well, I'm trying to win $1 million. Well, before you can win $1 million, you have to win 2 out of 12 teams, and then 1 out of 10 and 1 out of 16. So we're going to try and keep all the factors in mind. The other important difference for those of you who followed me in the past is that unlike, thank you, Jose. Unlike in the past, we are going to be, this is a half PPR. And again, one of the edges, one of the simple edges is people don't adjust for the format. So we will do some shows talking about how to do half PPR, and we will do some shows about that this is not a tight end premium, right? So one of the key things always for me, and you get a ton of people on Twitter who are really smart people, and they go and they let me take the banner off. I don't, not that I think that there would be a problem, but that is a very old TV show and has nothing to do with Underdog Fantasy. It's just my own little kink, I guess, from my childhood. So one of the biggest problems that you hear from even very smart people at times is, well, here's the strategy that worked last year. And that is great information as long as ADP breaks out very similarly to how it did the year before. So last year, if you had the year before's information and you were building your teams, well, I'm going to take my running backs here, my wide receivers here, my quarterbacks here. I'm going to take so many quarterbacks, so many running backs, so many wide receivers. All that, it was great, except that all of a sudden, Underdog got wide receiver crazy, and the wide receivers were going much, much heavier than they were in the past. Also, and this is something we're going to talk about today as I go through some of my early teams. I saw a stat, and I don't remember what it was the year before, but it was something like 1% of the teams used a Fragile Four running back build. And Justin Herzig won the tournament with a Fragile Four. Last year, 20% of teams did Fragile Four. Now, I don't know if that meant that they also took a fifth running back or not, but 4 early running backs was 20% of the pie versus 1 or 2% the year before. Well, when those things happen, it changes what the optimal way to win this year is. So I'm not saying that last year's information, excuse me a second. I'm not saying that last year's information is worthless. It certainly isn't. It's a great starting point, but it's only as good as long as the drafts are following the way they did the year before. So one thing I've noticed pretty early, and we're going to go through all my drafts. First, we'll go through team by team from that first draft, and then we'll take a quick look at my other 4 drafts that I've done so far. And there's so many things to cover. We're going to cover how to stack, all the different, I will share with you every bit of strategy that I'm going to be using to win this thing. And what you have to realize is that these things, you have to be willing to change. There is great value in taking value. And we'll go into that a lot more as time goes on. So I am going to unshare that screen. Well, let me make sure there's nothing else I want to cover. Those were the main things. And I do think that I want to look at the prize pool real quick. So 2 million to first, 1 million to second. Give me third place in this thing. Give me fourth place in this thing. I mean, there is a ton of money up top in this. It is going to make some people, this is life-changing money. I mean, this is life-changing money. And, and still, if you get a team into the finals, you're 401 to 470. But once you get past that, it's 1,500. Once you get into the top 300, it's 2,500. Well, to max out this tournament, 25 times 150 is 3,750. Well, you get one team within the top 200, and you've broken even on the whole tournament. So that's the goal. The goal is to get that one team into the finals. I'm planning on hopefully doing that. And I'm also planning, hopefully, on making money and having a real sweat, because I put my heart and soul into this best ball stuff. This is something that I have put a lot of mind and body and heart into. And last year I was in the final 12 of the FFPC tournament with 100,000 up top, and it was bitter pill to come in 10th for $3,000. But I was profitable in that tournament, and we move forward and we take some of the lessons that we learned that I will share with you guys, and we'll move forward. And nothing would make me happier than to really, really dominate this thing. All right. Bum, 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 bum. Let's see, window. There we go. All right, so here's the draft, and unfortunately, it's harder to see on the desktop, but that's the only way that I can do this. But and there's a lot. Jack Miller was in the 1 spot. I think that's Jack. Eric Beamfor from Spike Week was in the 4. This was the first draft. Obviously, I was in the 10. So let's look at my team first. So overall roster construction, I went 2 quarterbacks, and I went 2. And this is really the ideal way to play quarterback. Don't take the couple guys, but get 2 of that next tier. Now, I will mix it up because I want to have, we'll talk a lot about my exposure and how I use exposure. It's one of my key things. But I am very happy with that. I had started with Najee Harris, and I got James Conner, end of the 3rd, who's going way too late. Singletary 3, Penny 4, and I could have stopped with a fragile 4 there, but I like Marlon Mack, and I took him in the 17th round. I think he's the best back on that team. I took an early tight end, which I'm going to be doing a lot of, in Darren Waller, a second tight end in Tyler Higbee. So you'll notice one thing that I talk about is putting enough weight at each position. And I only have 2 quarterbacks, but they're 2 good quarterbacks. I only have 2 tight ends, but they're not, touchdown dependent only guys. Higbee gets targets. And obviously, Darren Waller is a stud. So you'll notice how I put the weight there, and that's 2, 2, 5 is 9, which means I had 9 wide receivers. I had Lamb in the 2nd round, Allen Robinson. So Lamb with Dak and Michael Gallup, and I missed out on James Washington, but that's okay. And I had Higbee and Allen Robinson with Stafford. So some nice stacks. One of the things I do, because we don't have correlations this early, is I correlate within the division a lot. So you'll notice as we go through my teams, I talk about, I draft in tiers. I won't drop a tier for a strategy, except for stacking in a tournament like this. I will jump a tier to get the quarterback. Only the quarterback, not the wide receiver. Only the quarterback. If I have an early wide receiver, like this was a little early for Dak. Let's see. Any comments? Let's go back for a second. All right, good. All right, so you see my team is super balanced all the way through. some nice correlations. Curtis Samuel in division with Dallas. I wish I had done more with Zay Jones and Cedric Wilson, but I autoed Cedric Wilson. Ideally, I would have had someone either in the NFC East or in the NFC West with those guys. All right, so let's look at some of the other teams. And last year, what won? Anchor running back. What are you going to see a ton of this year? Anchor running back. Does that mean I don't want to do anchor running back? It does not mean that. But it means that, in trying to take down $1 million, anchor running back is my favorite. And I'm sure I'll do plenty of it. But I'm also going to, not be afraid to take two when the value's there, like I did here with James Conner. Take another one with Singletary. I'm not afraid of zero running back. So as we go through some of my other teams, we'll notice that. All right. So this gentleman Jack went with Trey Lance and Ryan Tannehill. Well, I don't feel that that's enough weight at quarterback. It's a little light. It's not terrible. I don't think it took him out of contention. And he took one anchor running back, Ramondre, James Robinson coming off an Achilles, Gus Edwards, and Chris Carson. I don't think that's enough weight at running back, even though you got Jonathan Taylor. I'm not a huge fan of this team. Knox, Edwards, and Carson, and he has a really good running back room, wide receiver room, though. And you know what? That might be enough because this is a 3 wide receiver tournament, unlike FFPC, which is 2. And he's got 4 good ones in a row. He's got Ayuk. He's got 6 really, and Galladay. He's got 7 really good out of his 8, 7 really good wide receivers, which means he can win the flex every week. And that's one of the key strategies you find from these RotoViz guys. It's a good strategy, but it did cost him at a couple other positions. In a tournament like this, maybe that's the way to go. I don't know, but it's not my strategy. All right, second guy, another anchor, right? I'm not going to go through every team, but I'm just giving you the point. Lamar Jackson and Daniel Jones, I think that's a good enough too. All right. Justin Herbert and Kirk Cousins, I think that's a good enough too. He added Jared Goff. I probably wouldn't have done that. All right. So we're talking about quarterbacks, mistakes, not mistakes, Joe Burrow and Justin Fields. I like that. All right. I'm not as high on Joe Burrow as some people, but he was drafted as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th quarterback, which is fine. And I think Justin Fields is the best quarterback in that tier. So when you go after Justin Fields, now you've got Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson. So I really liked what Eric did at quarterback. M. Jerky had Kyler and Brady. I would have stopped, and he did. I didn't like this team that much. Josh Allen and Mahomes together. I mean, that's a little too much weight at one position. And where does it come out? Irv Smith and Gerald Everett. Now, those are actually not terrible wide tight ends. But he's a little weak at tight end. He actually did pretty good there. Henry, Gibson 2, Dillon 3, Edwards Hilaire 4, and Naheem Hines 5. It's actually a better team than I don't like the move, but the team is not bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wide receivers. All right, not a bad team after all. All right. Let's look here. We've got Aaron Rodgers and Jameis, and he added Drew Lock. I don't think he needed to. I think those are enough weight. But he did have DK Metcalf. I do think Lock's going to be low owned. I don't have a problem with that. And you notice no Fragile 4 teams so far. Last year it was 20%. So here's 4 early. All right, so here's our first Fragile 4, but I don't like Kenneth Walker here. I mean, to me, he could be the backup all year. So when you do Fragile 4, you want 4 guys that you can really count on. Obviously, he believes that he did that, but we'll count that as a Fragile 4. That's the first one we've seen. And then you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, and he got good ones, even though he went late in Freiermuth, Gesicki, and Ingram, and quarterback Tua and Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett. He's weak at quarterback, right? And that's where he's weak. All right, but I like Tua this year. Let's see, but he didn't get one of Tua's big targets. He got Gesicki. So he went fragile. I don't like the Walker. It's not bad. I give it a B. And it's our first Fragile 4. Shimmy, Cocoa Puffs. All right. I don't see Jose as a question. I mean, look, your strategy changes. You can have 1 or 2 teams and have fun. If you're planning on using my strategies, I'd want at least 50. All right. I'd want, I'd put in, at least 50, over 100,000. If not, I'd wait. I'd do a couple, and then I would do the $5. And that way you can max out the whole thing at $750. So that is what I would do if I didn't have the bankroll for, or you could do 100 for $500. That's what I would do, Jose. All right, let's go back to these teams. All right, Kelsey team had Watson, Lawrence, and Mariota. And because of Watson, he put in a third quarterback. That's fine. Pretty good construction there. Hurts and Carr, that's a little weak, but it's okay. All right, so that gives you some ideas on that. Now I just really quickly want to go through some of my other teams, and I want to just show you something about give me a second. I want to show you some of my other teams, other leagues. In the very, very month of May, I was taken by surprise. All right. Boom. All right. So, just real quickly, Fragile 4. Squat started with 3 and went with 5 total, not a Fragile 4. Not a Fragile 4, 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 not a Fragile 4. Well, okay, me, this is my team, but not a 4, not a 4, not a 4. So 3 early, and Dylan will count as a Fragile 4, but he drafted 2 more. So that's a mistake, right? Drafting 6 when you've got 4 early, at most I would have went 5. I don't like that. All right, but so now we've got 1 Fragile 4 out of 24 teams so far. All right. Now let's look at my team real quick. I love this team. It was one of the many AFC West teams I'm going to have. Just check it out on Twitter. I don't want to take up too much time with that. I want to just keep on this Fragile 4 thing. That's a point I'm trying to make today. Share screen. I tried to set this all up before and had all of them, but it wouldn't do it. So, all right, Fragile Four, another team. So you'll notice I did 3 early, and Kareem Hunt, who I think is a good enough fourth, and I stopped. So there is a Fragile Four in this one, and it's mine. Okay? No Fragile Four, no Fragile 4 very early. Did he take a fifth? He did. He took a fifth. Not a Fragile Four. J.P. Tucker. Not a Fragile Four, not a Fragile Four. No. So now we're at 2 of 36, and one of them is mine. You guys get where I'm going here? Let's just finish the exercise. I've done 5, so we only have to do 2 more. All right. 1, 2, 3. He went with 5, so no Fragile Four. No. 3, 4. Walker in the 8th. This could be 1. And it is. So there is 1. Again, with Walker as the 4th. I don't like it, but that is Fragile Four. All right, so we got 1. We got 3. That's not a Fragile Four. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, that's a lot of running backs, Mr. Foley. Not a Fragile Four. All right, so this is a Fragile Four for now. Did they add a 5th? He added a 5th, not a Fragile Four. He added a 6th, too. And not a Fragile Four. So now we're at 3 of 48. And we'll do the last one to prove my point. I mean, it's possible that this is not a complete slice. It's just 5 drafts, but I do think it's indicative. So no Fragile Four, no Fragile Four. I did 3 early. What did I do afterwards? Ronald Jones was my 4th, and I stopped. So I've been noticing that people haven't been doing the Fragile Four, so I'm doing it. Rojo is really a borderline Fragile Four 4th back, but I felt really good about Barkley, Chubb, and Connor in the 4th. I feel like Connor is, I feel like it's almost like 3 second rounders. I think any of these 3 guys could be in the second round by the time we're done. So I went Fragile Four. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. 3 early and 5. All right. So 4 of 60. Take me out of it, and it's 2 of 58. Th- 3.4% of teams are Fragile Four so far. It's only 5 drafts, but far off of what it was last year. And one of the other, once we get a few more of these, we're going to examine how many anchor teams there are compared to last year. And back to my original point, don't play last year's tournament over again. Find out there's a number of strategies that can work. Let's find one that could work for this year. And right now, if only 3.4% of other teams are going to do Fragile Four, I'm very intrigued by it. So I didn't want to go into all my teams one by one, but they're all posted on Twitter. Please go and like my posts, follow me on Twitter, and mention that you saw me to the Underdog people. And if you've never done one of the drafts, definitely use the code Daylight as your code. Jose, thank you as well, and thanks to everyone else. And we will see you soon.